Motherfucker, I just zoomed that bitch. What did it? No? Okay. Almost there. Ooh, all right. All right. All right. Good enough. Good enough. Good enough is a phrase that I rarely say in my life. Virtually never. I mean, that's what obsessive compulsive disorder is it's not about good enough, it's about perfectionism. It's about getting it perfect, getting it right, and right equals perfect, at least for me. And I think for that's what OCD is. Yeah. And of course, perfection is not, it's not a real thing. It's a concept in the human mind. It's relative, it's subjective. There's no absolute perfection. There's no certainty. Really, that's more than anything, that's what OCD is about achieving this state of certainty. And when I feel like I've gotten it right, when I'm certain, I get high. I get fucking high off of it. This is what becomes more and more clear to me is OCD is an addiction. And I really think addictions are the most horrific curse on humanity. And it probably is just humanity. I don't think animals get addicted. I don't know, maybe what, pandas with the leaves that they like, but yeah, you know, it's those classic studies that really highlight the horror of addiction. Well, certainly humans can make animals get addicted. Those studies where they give rats the ability to administer cocaine to themselves, and they will do it to the point of neglecting everything else. They won't eat, they won't sleep, they won't fuck, they won't play, and eventually they will die. They will die of starvation and dehydration, just continually hitting that lever, hitting that lever, hitting that lever. And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks, is just hitting the fucking lever again and again and again, just trying to get little hits, little payoffs, little feelings of I've gotten it right, I've gotten it right, I've gotten it right. Because when I feel like I've gotten it right, I feel safe. I feel okay. And so much of the time I don't feel okay. And I'm 47 and I still don't fucking know why. I still don't fucking know why. Sometimes I think that there's some huge trauma that I just have suppressed. But, you know, I've gone pretty deep with psychedelics and I've never found anything there. Of course, it could be ancestral trauma. I'm Jewish, Eastern European Jewish. And, you know, the idea of epigenetic trauma, that a grandparent or a great-grandparent experiences a trauma, it actually changes their gene expression. That is, certain genes are switched on or switched off as a result of trauma. And once that happens, that can be propagated through birth lines. But yeah, that feeling when I feel like I've gotten it right, that feeling of, it just feels like just well-being. But of course it doesn't last, because what it is when I feel like I've gotten it right, well, let me be specific. The particular lever I've been hitting connected to the cocaine pellet dispenser of OCD for me for weeks has been trying to decide whether to go to a beach house perched on top of a dune at the edge of the Cape Cod National Seashore, overlooking the open Atlantic Ocean, where I can stay for free. Which should be an easy decision because I love Cape Cod. I've been to this house. I love this house. And it should be easy because I'm not doing well in New York. I'm struggling in a way that I don't know if I've ever really struggled to this extent before. I've certainly always struggled. There's never been a period where there hasn't been struggle. But for me, the OCD, so much of it is with the decision making. I don't even know if I mentioned that. That's what it's about for me, is trying to make the right decision. And I have more freedom than I've ever had before in my life. I haven't had a day job since 2017, but prior to the lockdown, I was doing shows 5 or 6 nights a week, and that provided some structure. I couldn't just decide to go off to Cape Cod if I had shows lined up. But now I'm not doing many shows. I'm trying to quit stand-up, and I've just decided instead of quitting, I'm doing this now on stage with stand-up, and I did it on Saturday. I guess I'm going to dispense with the concern that what feels very disjointed to me that's a problem. I think if I try to manage the narrative in terms of ensuring that there's a continuity. If I'm just not going to worry whether people can follow this or not. See, that's one of the things I found Saturday night. I was just like, why am I even going on stage? Well, why don't I go on stage and talk about exactly what's going on in my life? And I did that at a comedy club. Everyone else had been doing jokes. I got on stage and I did that, and it was fucking electric. It was revelatory for me. And I think for the audience. It wasn't comedy. It wasn't stand-up. But I don't think anyone complained about that. And however, even though I'm not going to worry about whether you guys can follow, I have to worry about whether I can follow. And I lost my train of thought. How did that connect? I don't know. Yeah, lost it. Anyway, yeah. Oh, right. The way it connects is I realized when I'm doing this on... So basically what I did on stage is the same thing I've been trying to do in class in recent weeks, and it went so much better on stage because I realized having an audience there, it connects me. And it also reassures me. I can tell how I'm doing. There's a sense of, even if I'm not trying to make people laugh, I can still sense whether they're connected or not. And if they're connected, I can kind of not figure out because it's not a mental thing, but it's really more of a physical thing. I often think of comedy and performance, the closest analog for me is dancing, where the way to dance is not to think about dancing, it's to listen to the music and let your body do what it wants to do. And I think the way to perform is not to think about, for me, not to think about the performance, but to just be present as much as I can and just see, almost sense in my body, where am I going? Where do I want to go? And it's very hard to do that without the feedback of an audience. That's what I came to appreciate after my performance, during my performance Saturday night. Plus, there were a lot of laughs. I didn't do any jokes, but there were a lot of laughs. Part of it was me commenting on things extemporaneously happening in the room, and part of it was, I don't know. So yeah, the decision-making OCD. So for weeks, I was consumed with this decision. Should I leave New York just for a few weeks and go to this house on the edge of the ocean in Cape Cod? Right, I was saying this. And it should have been an easy decision. I love Cape Cod, and I've really, really, really been struggling in New York. And the ocean just, it calms me, it soothes me in a way that nothing else does, not reliably. There is something unique. And this house, you cannot get closer to the ocean than this house. This house is literally falling into the ocean. They had to cut back the front deck because it fell off this dune. And this house will only be there for a few more years. As the dune continues to erode, the house will have to be demolished. And there's no more property behind it. So why wouldn't I go to this house? Why wouldn't I go to this house? Well, because I want a life in New York. That's the thing, is I realize part of the reason I've been struggling so much is because of this lack of structure. And the way to create more structure is to move forward in my career. And there are a lot of opportunities that I'm just not following up on. Just not following up on. And I want to follow up on them. There's things I want to create, there's things I want to share, and there's specific career opportunities I want to follow up on. And I also want, I want connection. I want love. I'm going to be alone on Cape Cod. And I'd been there alone in this same house in April, and I had done not well. I had done very, very poorly. I'd gotten completely caught in a decision as to how long I should stay in Cape Cod, where should I go next, and it totally took over when I was there in April. So, and I think part of it was just, the more I'm alone, the more time I have with my own thoughts in my own brain, the more I can go into the OCD. So part of the antidote has to be connection. And I'm not going to get that on the Cape. I am going to get that in New York. And I do have that in New York. I have a lot of friends in New York. And I have, I don't know. There are women I could date, but I feel like I'm too sick for that sometimes, but sometimes I don't. This is the thing, is when I'm in an OCD cycle, like I have been for recent weeks, it's not continuous, it's continual. Because basically, I pop out of it from time to time when I have made at least a temporary decision. So in the case of this Cape House, a temporary decision would be like, okay, I'm not going to go this weekend. I could still go Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, but I'm not going this weekend. I'll make that decision. I'll feel awful. That's the thing, is the way the addiction works is the longer I spend obsessing about a choice, the more, well, first of all, part of it, there's something going on physiologically. I get very ramped up in my body. I get very agitated to the point that I literally can't sit still. When I'm really in the throes of an OCD crisis, I am kinetic. I am pacing back and forth. And as it gets worse, I'm often shouting. Fuck is my preferred thing to shout out loud. Not at the top of my lungs because I don't want neighbors to hear, though I'll scream it into pillows sometimes. When I get very agitated, there's often a need to destroy something. And sometimes this need to destroy something, oh man. All right, I said I'm just going to keep going, so I'm just going to keep going. Yeah, let me just try to get into the fucking story. But I mean, I guess this is the story. Why does this feel so goddamn fucking hard doing this? Well, I guess I said why, because there's no feedback. There's no... Yeah, it feels like I'm... And yet, when I do watch these videos, I'm often like, oh, there's more of a narrative, there's more clarity than I realized. So, yeah, I was really caught in this decision about whether and when to go to Cape Cod. Part of it also is I don't like the place I'm living in New York, because the place I'm living in New York is a massive $10 million penthouse in the West Village of Manhattan, and that may be the problem. That may be the fucking problem. My life might have been totally different if I wasn't living in this penthouse, if instead I'd gone back to my much more modest but very comfortable, feeling like home apartment in Brooklyn Heights, right near the water. I mean, this apartment in the West Village is near the water too, but it's the west side of Manhattan, which is not in the same universe in terms of how nice it is to Brooklyn Bridge Park in Brooklyn Heights. And my place in Brooklyn is sublet, but I could go back at any time. And every month, as we get near the end of the month, I go into this terrible obsessive cycle about, should I go back to my place, kick out my subletter, pay rent for my own place, and leave this penthouse where I am staying free, rent free. I mean, it seems crazy, but I'm crazy. I'm fucking crazy. And since this keeps coming up, maybe I should just go back to my apartment. I mean, it makes sense. I'm comfortable there. I'm comfortable. I've been comfortable in my apartment in Brooklyn. I am not comfortable in this penthouse, but it's also very possible I won't be comfortable anywhere. Because the spikes started in March. By spikes, I mean this phenomena that I've never experienced before. So people often say, like, oh, someone with OCD, the pandemic and lockdown must have been so difficult, but it wasn't difficult for me. I don't have any contamination fear. I have, if anything, subpar personal hygiene. So I wasn't concerned. I mean, I didn't want to get COVID, but I didn't have any particular obsessive fears about it. And what the lockdown gave me is almost complete relief over the obligation to make decisions. And I had a project, a creative project I cared about. And I was free from wibbly, because wibbly, that is the spear point of the OCD for me. Wibbly, it's an acronym. It stands for, what would it be like if? And this is the very seductive thought. It's sort of the red carpet OCD rolls out for me. But when I follow that red carpet, it leads straight into a prison. What would it be like if I was in Cape Cod right now instead of in this penthouse in Manhattan? What would it be like if I'd never come back to New York? I'd instead moved to the Bay Area. What would it be like if I moved to the Bay Area now? And I didn't have that during the lockdown because there were really, I mean, I did have it around, small things like, oh, maybe I'll go for a hike today. Also, part of it is I was very focused on a specific creative project, that a film, basically, a video thing I was making. And so I felt engaged with work. I had plenty of social connection because for the first 5 months of the lockdown, I was living with a lover. And then for the remainder, I was living with my family, parents, siblings, in-laws, nephews, and nieces. And yeah, there were no major decisions to make. And I really felt during the lockdown, I was like, wow, I am cured. I just don't have OCD anymore. And yet, when it would come time, when there was a nice day and I would start to figure out, oh, maybe I should go to the beach today, I would still get trapped for a few hours. So much of this is circumstantial, it feels like. Yeah, if I was literally locked in prison, I would be free of OCD. Yeah, I'm quite confident in that statement. You might think it would morph into another form, and maybe it would. Maybe it would. I don't know. Maybe it would, and who knows what else would happen, because there's something very, very big under the OCD. I'm seeing that more and more clearly, and yet I have no more clarity on what that thing is. And that's the thing, I think, that started emerging in March. So I was with my family in the Boston area, for the lockdown. And, New England weather, it was cold, it was gray. And then, first week in March, the weather switched. The average temperature went from like low 50s to upper 60s, and day after day of perfect sunshine. And I love sunny weather, I love warm weather. Yet somehow, when this weather change came about, I got hit with these massive spikes of anxiety. And I'd felt so little anxiety for so many months at that point, it was literally shocking. I'd feel good in the mornings when I'd wake up. But sometime around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, I would just feel this incredible surge of physical anxiety in my body. And at first, I looked at it as an answer to a prayer. Because for about 1.5 years now, my most consistent prayer every morning and every night has been praying for more willingness to be uncomfortable. The specific prayer is, please increase my willingness to be uncomfortable. Because the OCD is about trying to avoid any discomfort, any imperfection. Let me be more, it's about trying to avoid feelings in my body. Fear, principally. And under the fear, whatever this huge thing is, this grief, this, trauma. So if I'm willing to feel those feelings in my body, the OCD has nothing on me. The gun it's holding to my head, it's not loaded. Or more accurately, I've already taken the bullet. I've already felt the feelings. And so when I started getting these spikes of anxiety in March, I was like, okay, this is a lot, but I'm not having OCD. I'm just having these massive anxiety spikes, and that means my prayer is being answered. I'm being willing to feel this discomfort. I'm not going into OCD, and it felt as incredibly unpleasant as it was, like a victory. Of course, I see now that so much of it was circumstantial. Yeah, I wasn't going into OCD because there were no decisions to make then. And it got more and more intense day after day, these surges of anxiety, reliably, every day. And I noticed when there was an occasional gray or rainy day, I felt relief. It didn't come. And I thought, well, maybe this is an OCD thing. Maybe it's an optimization thing. Maybe it's some part of my brain that's like, hey, it's a beautiful day out. You shouldn't be inside working. You should be going outside and playing. But there was something else. And soon the tears started following. I'd have this surge in anxiety hitting around 1 or 2 p.m. I would try to feel it. I'd breathe. I'd really feel the feelings as best as I could. I would try to do some work. But it was just so intense. It was almost impossible to do anything. And finally, around 3 or 4 o'clock, about 2 hours after the anxiety hit, I would just start sobbing. Just intense sobbing. 10 or 15 minutes of intense sobbing every day. And when that ended, when the sobbing would pass for that given day, the fear was less. I guess because I'd surrendered to something. But it would come back the next day. And then as things started opening up more with the lockdown, there were decisions to make, and the OCD went off the fucking charts. And basically, it seems like now my life is largely contingent on what decisions I have to make. But you see, I say have to make, and that's not really accurate. I don't have to make these decisions. This isn't like someone saying, these are decisions that I'm creating for myself. My friend didn't email me out of the blue and say, hey, do you want to stay at my Cape House for free for a few weeks? I texted him to see if it was available. If I hadn't texted him, none of this would have happened. And for weeks, it dominated. And when it dominates, that is my life. Like any addiction, that is my life. There's nothing else matters. My father has early stage Alzheimer's. It is extremely challenging for my mother. And yet when she tells me something very distressing that has happened with him, something he forgot that's like a new milestone in the progression of the Alzheimer's, I feel less distress about that than when I'm in the decision and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go to the Cape. Yeah, that feels right. That feels right. Wait, no, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. And part of why it doesn't feel right is I wonder if part of why I'm going crazy is my environment. You know, those classic studies, the addiction study with the rat and the pellets. Someone more recently replicated that study with an important modification. See, rats, obviously, they don't naturally live in cages. That's not their habitat. It's such an incredibly arrogant thing for humans to assume that you could put a creature in a totally different habitat and that's not going to have an impact on it. So this person, this more recent researcher, put rats in basically like nice rat neighborhoods. I don't know what that means exactly, but room to play, things, other rats to socialize with, environmental stimulation, and still gave them the lever, still gave them the cocaine pellets, and in those environments, something very different happened. The rats, they'd hit the lever, they'd get a little not blow, it's pellets, but get a little coke, and then they'd go play with other rats, or they'd go swimming in a little rat swimming pool, or whatever. And I think about that as I'm pacing back and forth in the penthouse, this huge fucking penthouse, going like this. This is my gesture often, holding my head like I can keep it together somehow, but I can't keep it together. I'm screaming, I'm writhing, I'm crying, and I know how insane this is. Why am I doing this? Is it because a loved one has cancer? Is it because I'm being drafted to fight in some army for a cause I don't believe in? No, it's because I can't decide whether to go to this fucking beach house for a few weeks. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, yeah, maybe it's this environment. Maybe it's this penthouse, and maybe it's not just this penthouse. Maybe it's being in a city. Maybe if I'm in an environment where I can spread out, where I can play, where I can relax, where I can hear the ocean. That's what I need. I need to hear the ocean. I'll be okay. So then I should go to the Cape. Why not go to the Cape? Why not go to the Cape? Well, the fact is, as I said, last time I was at the Cape in April, I was not happy. And also, I've spent a lot of time alone by the ocean in recent years. And it's become progressively less and less rewarding as time has gone on. And what do I really want? Do I want to have a feeling of blissed out peace by the ocean? Yes, I do. But what do I really want? I want, Freud said 2 things in life: love and work. Those are the things I want, and I feel like I could have those things. The career stuff, I feel like, man, if I could just put together like one day, like there's shit that has been on my plate that could be very good for my career, that will take a couple of hours, and it's been on my plate for months, and it just feels like I can't string together a few hours of relative sobriety from the OCD to do this stuff. And then love. I don't know, that's a much more complicated one. I think the career, the work stuff, yeah, maybe there's a part of me that self-sabotages, but I think that's just me being too sick to do what I need to do to have the career that I could have. The relationship stuff is trickier because I think there's a lot of internal conflict about that, because the OCD in its current form started 18 years ago when I had the most significant relationship of my life end. And that could be the trauma. Maybe that's the trauma, but I know that I don't think it's just that, because this thing that takes me over, these surges, it feels very like what happened when I was a little kid. And when I was a little kid, that happened every day. Every day, my mother would tell me to do something simple, normal, pick up my toys, that sort of thing. And I just wouldn't do it. And she would insist, and I would refuse, and she would insist, and I would refuse, until eventually I would become just enraged and start smashing things. Smashing my toys, punching through windows. I'm talking 5 years old. Where did that fucking come from? That's what it feels like now. That's what it felt like last night. I know I'm all over the place with the time frame. I can't imagine anyone's following this, but fuck it. Last night, when I got totally fucking taken over. I had the opportunity to go for a hike yesterday. The weather is beautiful, and I spent the day before, Wednesday, obsessing. Should I go for a hike Thursday? Should I not? Because again, I want to be doing work, and I knew I was going to be coming here to my friend's place in New Jersey today. So I was like, you don't get 2 nature days in a row. Like, do 1 fucking day of work. 1 day of work. So all Wednesday I obsessed about it. Yesterday I decided, no, I'm going to stay. I'm not going to go for a hike. I'm going to stay, and I'm going to do work in the horrible, horrible penthouse. And I felt good about that decision for about 2 hours, and then I started, no, I should go for a hike. It might be that there might not be another day this nice until next May. It was fucking beautiful yesterday. Go for a hike. You'll feel good. And I just started spiraling, and then by the time I wanted to go for a hike, it was too late for me to borrow my friend's car. And then what I wound up doing was just smoking weed and going to my old neighborhood, the neighborhood where my apartment is in Brooklyn Heights, the apartment where I've been comfortable, maybe not happy, but comfortable for many years, but where I'm not living now, and wandering around, and I felt so fucking hard, so fucking tight, I couldn't feel anything. I wasn't scared, I wasn't sad, I was numb in a way that I've never been before. Like, I've literally never, it was a new thing for me. It was a new thing. I mean, I'm not conveying the distress I felt leading up to this, but yeah, yesterday, should I go for the hike? Should I not go for the hike? Pacing and literally every smaller concentric circles. And my old neighborhood, walking around, not feeling anything. And finally I started singing, which is, like I have time to fucking take on another creative endeavor, but I sing more and more, and I've been writing songs, and so I was singing. Ooh, yeah, I was actually not singing one of my own songs. I was singing a Fugazi song called I'm So Tired. It goes a little something like this. Right. Something. Out here, barely see my breath surrounded by jealousy and death. I can't be reached, only had one call, dragged underneath, separate from you all. Something this time, lost my own return in spite of everything I've learned. I hid my tracks, spit out all my air, slipped into cracks, stripped of all my cares. And I was singing that at Brooklyn Bridge Park, and I started crying. Because I can feel when I sing, I can feel the vibrations in my heart. That's actually how I sing. And when I write songs, it's actually a way of me massaging, for lack of a better term, my own heart. It's me finding pitches that resonate where my heart is. And I was like, oh yeah, of course, as I started to cry at the park. This is why I feel so hard, so tight, so locked up, as I've just shut down the feelings because they're too much. But I also knew if I let it rip in the park, like someone was going to call the fucking police. So I got on the subway. I went back to the penthouse. I started singing there. And I started fucking sobbing. It was probably 25 minutes of just abject sobbing, screaming fuck into the pillow as loud as I could. And even with that, so when I got back to the penthouse, I was so angry. I just wanted to smash things. I wanted to fucking smash things. But I was like, no, if you cry, that will leach out the anger. But even as I was crying, the rage was so strong. And I was like, I have to fucking break something. So, but what can I break? Well, I can't break stuff that's not mine in this $10 million penthouse, but I have enough stuff there. And so as, the counterbalance show, I would act it out, but basically I'm pacing around sobbing, full on sobbing, and yet in a very kind of cool, calculated way, trying to figure out what I can break. And you'd think that if I can kind of calm down enough to decide what to break, I wouldn't need to break anything. But no, I need to break something. So the first thing I did is I took a box of tissues and just tore it in half and slammed it down on the ground, which a box of tissues, not a satisfying object to slam on the ground. Not aerodynamic, no real mass. So I was like, no, I need to fucking break something. Should I break this tripod? No, I need that tripod. A lighting stand? Those are probably expensive to replace. Finally, I settled on a mic stand. And yeah, actually, I feel good. As someone who doubts his choices, in hindsight, I feel good about that particular choice, breaking that mic stand, because it was satisfying. It was metal, but I was able to break it. And just fucking demolish that thing.
It's 2:40. Do you wanna call it there?
I can go a few more minutes if you think it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. I think you're onto something.
Cool. Yeah. I text my friend is downstairs and I messaged him that it might be a little longer. So, yeah. I mean, what the fuck is that? Like, as I'm going through this yesterday, I mean, you have to understand, I'm just sobbing. I'm repeating myself. I told you this already, but just like, but it's also like, I guess I'm glad that there's enough wisdom maybe at some level to know what my body needs in that moment and to let it have it. But what the fuck is that? And part of why I'm feeling so broken as I'm sobbing is it feels like, yeah, this is not OCD. This is something. I don't know what this is. But like just this level of intensity. Like, yeah, how can I fucking go on a date or get on stage and do a show or when I have this in me? And this in me that seems to be getting worse. And maybe if I just wasn't in this fucking penthouse, everything would be different. Maybe it would just be, so why not just go back to my apartment in Brooklyn Heights? But I know with the OCD, the only chance I have of freedom is making decisions and sticking to them. And I've already told my subletter he could stay through November. And I don't know. I mean, yes, I think I would feel more comfortable in my place in Brooklyn Heights. But clearly what's going on is beyond that. For one thing, it predated it. The spikes, as mentioned, started in March. This is what I think right now. I think if I were more comfortable in my environment, I might not be experiencing this intensity of emotion that I'm experiencing, and yet that intensity is in me. That intensity, I mean, it's not like living in this apartment, in this penthouse, is so horrifically, objectively wrong and unacceptable that it's producing it. If I were more comfortable, maybe it wouldn't be exploding the way it's exploding, but there's something there. And at times that can be a relieving thought because maybe I can process it, maybe I can get through it. And I am starting a new therapy. I haven't been in therapy in years because believe it or not, I've gotten a lot out of therapy and I kind of know what to do. And I do know what to do with the OCD, I guess. But it still keeps fucking getting me. And so the narrative could be there's whatever this thing is, trauma, whatever this thing is, it's intolerable. And so OCD is, it's like any other addiction, right? You choose an addiction even after it doesn't work for you because it's preferable to what you would experience if you were not high. And so maybe if I can get some freedom from this thing or with this thing, then I'm not saying the OCD will go away, but basically, well, yeah, I started by saying I just want to feel okay. And if I feel okay more of the time, more reliably, then maybe I won't have to pick up the OCD crack pipe. I guess that's where I'm at now, is feeling like, OCD, it's heavy, it's very real, it's very big, and it will destroy me. It will tear me up. There's no doubt about that. And I do have to be vigilant with the OCD and address the OCD, but there's also this other piece. And so on Monday, I'm starting a new type of therapy called internal family systems. Family doesn't refer to your family. It refers to the idea of we all have a family within us of different voices, different constituencies. And by learning to identify, and actually the idea, as I understand it, is you can talk to these parts within yourself and kind of get them to chill the fuck out. Because, yeah, if I had to speculate what part is this, it's this little boy, Because it does feel, there's a tantrum element, there's a lack of being able to control. But that lack of being able to control my emotions that's never not been there. And I guess, so I'm at my friend's place now. My friend I haven't seen since 2017. He's probably 70. We met at an ayahuasca retreat in Peru. He's a wise man. And maybe he can help. Just being not in the penthouse feels like it helps. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. That doesn't mean that I should leave. Yeah, what a crazy fucking existence.
Yeah, Adam, let's end it right there.
Yeah.
Great place,
Yeah, thanks.
Give him a hand, please. Adam, do you have time for Susan and I?
Yeah, and I could hear a few more. My friend, he's like, yeah, take as much time as you need. He actually, he knows I'm going through some shit.
Okay.